Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Investec Cape Town Art Fair. I'm Mandy, and I represent one of the co-sponsors, I2Art Insure. We are specialist art insurance insurers, and as well as all collectibles. So whether you buy a very valuable piece of work here at the art fair, you can insure it directly. You can scan the QR code over there and stand a chance to win a bottle of artisanal gin called the Underwriter, specially produced through Art Insure for occasions such as this. And then most importantly, when you leave here after this very exciting talk that awaits, please make sure that you collect a little black bag outside, because it has something that looks like a business card, but it is actually an RFID card which protects your cards, your credit cards, against fraudulent incidental scanning. So somebody can walk past you and brush their card against your purse, your wallet, your pocket, and get your details. So it's really a very, very clever invention, and there's one waiting for you. Enjoy the talk. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me properly? Yeah, thank you. So I'm Mariella Franzoni. I am the curator of Tomorrow's Today, curated program within the Investec Cape Town Art Fair. I will be your moderator today to facilitate conversations amongst 5 artists, all participating in the Tomorrow's Today section of 2024. So we have Lindokuhle Sobekwa, Natalie Paneng, Boemo Diale, Marlene Steyn, and Cinthia Sifa Mulanga. So thank you, the 5 of you, to join this talk. I think many of you might have had the chance to walk through the Tomorrow's Today section, which is just at the entrance of the fair. So maybe I would like to introduce a little bit what Tomorrow's Today is as a program. As mentioned, is a curated program that I have the honor to curate for the second year after I co-curated with Natasha Becker last year. So it's a program that tries to spotlight and then is perceived as an observatory, like a platform, to highlight talents, practices that we think will have a great impact on society and in the art world of tomorrow. So some of the artists could be defined like emergent, some underrepresented because maybe they've been operating in the region of origin. So this is very much interpreted as and understood as an international platform hosted in Cape Town. So thank you for passing the slides. So you can, the following one, yes. So this year, Tomorrow's Today features 12 solo projects by artists from different parts of the world. In this case, here we have 5 of them South Africans, except for Cinthia, who was born in DRC, but is based in South Africa, so she's perfectly part of the art scene in these regions. But we also have artists from India, from France, from Spain, Mexico, Brazil. So I think this year we really reached our goal, I think, to make it international, like with a special focus on the Global South. So I think it's beautiful for the fair to be a point of encounter between artists that have been operating mostly locally in South Africa and artists that have been operating in their country of origin, most of the time. So the idea of this conversation is to kind of continue and delve into the idea of the themes and the conversation we had during the preparation of this program. So all these artists are brought together under a curatorial framework that is inhabiting the wild. So I think it's interesting for us to understand how the relationship with this notion of the wild, the relationship of art and nature, which is a fundamental theme in the history of arts and culture in general, is present in your work, and how is it been important in the shaping of your project. So maybe we start with Lindokuhle. Lindokuhle is a South African artist that works with photography, documentary photography, with a very lyrical language. Is represented by Goodman Gallery, and has presented a solo project titled The Heart of the Garden. So Lindokuhle, please feel free to take us through your project.
Thank you so much, Mariella. Can you hear me? Okay. So yeah, I mean, my body of work, Heart of the Garden, is part of Ezilalini, the country, which is a body of work that looks at the idea of home, you know, what home means, you know, in both places, like in Johannesburg, as I was born there, and also in the Eastern Cape, where my family home is, which I've never been, you know. And so the body of work is informed mostly by like oral history, is informed by, you know, unrest historical places, you know. And the title of this body of work is called The Heart of the Garden, because I was interested in this idea of the garden, you know, in a place that, you know, has a kind of history that, you know, of land and the whole idea of township structure. You know, I started in Thokoza, where I worked with Goglusi, whom, you know, her garden is opposite a hostel called Mshazafe. You know, in Thokoza in the early 90s, there was a huge kind of black on black violence, I mean, in many black townships. So Goglusi's garden, you know, has been there since the 80s, because she has participated in the so-called pavement garden, you know. So, you know, in each and every township structure, there's always like a small Anyana place where people can actually build their own gardens, or sometimes they can use the same space to build, you know, backyard shack or a room, you know. So for Goglusi's case, you know, she decided to build this garden. So, and also like for me, I was interested in this, in what Goglus was saying about this garden. Because even during the time of violence, you know, people would destroy her garden. You know, she would wake up in the morning and kind of and fix that garden, you know. And also like images of Sanele resting. I mean, for those of you who've been to the booth, you know, that used to again be the place that, you know, was full of violence. There's a image of the Bang Bang Club that used to work in Thokoza at that time. You know, you see dead bodies in the same landscape, you know. So what I'm trying to say is that with my work, you cannot avoid the question of, as I'm born free, I'm part of the born free generation, to ask yourself about what does it mean in a landscape that is still contested in South Africa. You know, to look at, of course, this beautiful landscape, but of course there's the underlying history of violence, you know, of separation, of kind of confining people in township structures. And same applies if you go to the Eastern Cape, you know, where my family is from, me learning about my own, you know, identity, the culture. And of course, that is also informed by the landscape. And, you know, the places that I went to were also informed by oral history that I collected from different family members of mine. So as a photographer, I tried to go to these places and interpret it, you know, in a way that, you know, I would like. So, so what we're trying to do with the kind of selection here was to create a sequence that starts in Johannesburg, and I will travel to the Eastern Cape. So one of the things that connects all these body of work is the horizon. So there's the horizon that starts basically from, you know, the cityscape of Johannesburg until to the Eastern Cape, where we end with the, the uprooted tree next to the sea. So that's where it ends. But who knows, maybe it can continue from the sea. So.
Thank you, Lindokuhle. I think it was extremely, for me, touching to go through, this body of work. And I'm personally very much interested in these complex dualities and contradictions in landscapes and in natures and in gardens that are kind of a space of beauty, but also space for grief, space where a lot of violence sometimes happen. So how do we conciliate these two spaces of nature? I think it's your contribution to the conversation is very important because it's rooted in history. And it's history, and it's the history of South Africa, a history that you have and all of you have inherited. So I think it's a very important, very interesting perspective in also the ecological question, I will say. Marlene, yes, we moved towards a completely new, a completely different imaginary about nature, which is very much connected with the unconscious, with the structuring of the self somehow. Marlene, South African artist represented by SMAC Gallery, has presented a solo project within Tomorrow's Today titled I Open Her. So would you like to take us through your journey?
Sure, thank you, Mariella. So my title of my booth was Eye Opener, which is also an eye opener. Lots of wordplay happening. And I think the her refers to a kind of she, nature, mother, goddess. And maybe like also a her that we have forgotten, that has been overwritten by a language that has been constructed by binary oppositions, linear thinking, and my practice and my art making is trying to remember this this ancient Mother Nature, who, for me, whose existence is coexistence, and who is ruled by the moon, who's constantly transforming. So I think a lot about the unconscious and this idea of nature in terms of how we think about ourselves, and also opening up the way we think about subjectivity as something that is very interwoven, not just that, like all the lines we draw around ourselves constantly. In psychoanalysis and in, if you think about the unconscious, it's actually a space where negation doesn't exist. So I'm interested bringing, opening up the way we think about it. There's a lot of eggs, there's a lot of snakes, which can maybe signify new beginnings or desires or danger. But so that's blurring me, you, us, nature is, central.
Thank you, Marlene. Also, I think that you kind of appropriate the language of surrealism in a very personal way, biographical. I think there is a biographical element also underlying your work. And I will say that one of the themes maybe addressed by other artists within Tomorrow's Today, which I find it also present or underpinning your practice, is this queering of different spices. There is this interspices, queering of the human with the natural world, with the animal world, with elements that are maybe more object, and all these aspects are very evident in your work, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
We move to Natalie Paneng. Hi, Natalie.
Hello.
Artist as well, based in Johannesburg, like Lindokuhle. And she presented a body of work, I will say a constellation, which is titled Ethereal Encryptions. So we also, in this case, are kind of in line with Marlene in the world of the fantastic as a way of exploring a reality that kind of queer the two dimension of life, the material world and the digital world, the word of the word of imagination, reimagining cosmic ecosystem. So, would you like to take us through your project?
Hi, everybody. Yes, so my booth is titled Ethereal Encryptions, and it's just because I was trying to think through the connections between, you know, a higher or a lower sense of being in states that are not necessarily revealed and showed to us at first glance, and that kind of, you know, led me to the word encryptions, that coded elements and that digitization, and I often make links for myself between, you know, this direction of artificial intelligence, but then also going back to divine intelligence, which is something that's always been there, something that's in nature and something that's within us all. So my work was kind of trying to bring to the surface that divine intelligence that is within nature, within us all, and kind of like play with what's concealed. And so that's why kind of you see them shifting between things constantly, and in order to see the shift, you have to kind of insert yourself and do a little bit of movement and a little effort in order to like get access into that deepened state. And so yeah, I hope I'm answering the question, but I think yeah, it's mainly about what is beneath the surface, but also what is beneath many surfaces, what's in the soil, and how does that power other things. And so yeah, like having the soil in the center kind of speaks to how there's connection from this source into other sources and deeper things. And yeah, I think that's where I think about the encryptions. That's the codes inside. Yeah.
The work that we see on the right, this is design of the booth previous to the fair, is that work titled As Above, So Below. So very much summarize your understanding of these cosmical balances in nature between microcosm and macrocosm. And yeah, if you haven't walked through this booth, I think it's a very sensorial experience and visual experience with lenticular images that really offer kind of a very different experience of moving images without the use of a screen.
Exactly. Yeah, I guess they bring that. It's like also as a digital artist trying to think about how to make the intangible, which is sometimes like the themes in the work is a lot of the intangible, the spiritual, which is intangible, making that like physical, and the same way as like before being a video artist trying to make images move but still tangible, something you can hold.
The next slide, I try to, yeah. Cinthia, yeah, she presented a new body of work for project titled Like Ice Cream. We've been knowing the work of Cinthia, familiarizing very much with the interiors of the domestic space. But there is a new element in this body of work that is completely inedit, and we would love to know what this element is.
Hello, everyone. So to quickly just, in the context of the works that I just created, I think I have to slowly go back to where I started. So initially, the works that I make is about the representation of Black women, and my initial reference was the Barbie doll, because it's a toy and I used to play with it a lot. It's a sentimental object, and I started with that and decided to use that as a reference and then play around the lifestyle of the Barbie doll. And it started as just the whole conversation of beauty, but then later on, as I delved deeper, is the whole conversation of the woman's consciousness and constructs around building a woman, conversation of womanhood, how do little girls become women. And so I wanted to delve deep into the conversation of womanhood, but with reference of the Barbie doll, and there was so many worms of topics and anything that was related to that. And so it was always about me constructing or building a conversation within the work. And so I would have the figures within the work that are just existing, but the artworks on the wall within the work would be some kind of symbolism that is either standard in society of maybe you see a woman cooking, and it's somehow a standard or a challenge that bear down on the subjects within the work. And so with this one, I wanted to kind of step away from that whole narrative, and I wanted to just focus on the aspect of enjoyment and the childlike, because when I think of nature, I think of enjoyment, relaxation, calm. There's no problems, no issue. And ice cream came to mind because I really like ice cream, though I can't really take it all the time because I get cold and I get flu, but I still take it nonetheless. So I think that was also another thing that's close to memory. Whenever I think of nature, I think of memory. I think of a child. I used to play a lot in the gardens, but that was way back in Congo. I grew up in South Africa. And then also another thing that adds to the work is I have two contexts, or two references rather. A girl that was born in Congo, and then you have reference from South Africa, which some things are just opposing in a way because of how young women are raised. It's very, I'm forgetting the word, it's very, how women are raised back then is not the same as how they're raised here. And so the whole idea of liberation and carefreeness, the jolliness as well of the child. And so I came up with the idea of ice cream, just speaking about the enjoyment of the child. The little girls playing outside, you see, whenever we go back to the booth, you see a little moment of the Barbie doll in the exterior, and then you have a little figure at the corner playing, I don't know the name of the game in English, but they're playing with hens, the whole play of that, because when growing up, I was always inside the house, and so I would somehow envy those playing outside, and so I wanted to take back that memory as well and add that within the work, but also ice cream goes to the memory of home, with the colors as well. I wanted to play with a lot of delicious colors and the deliciousness as well. You see some of the objects in the work starting to become ice cream cone or cupcake or donut. So it's the overall essence of enjoyment and comfortability within the work. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Cinthia. And I wanted to just, if we go back to this slide, what I've noticed when I saw the body of work is this view seems almost postcard. They don't seem like necessarily familiar places and views. So I think there is a juxtaposition between the interiors and the places that is imagined outside. Like I think this is Capri, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, this is the rocks in the island of Capri, for instance,
Yeah.
or gardens that are very Mediterranean somehow.
Oh, okay. So with the exteriors within the work, so also another thing that I wanted to make sure I do in the work is I start to kind of, so you imagine these spaces at the Barbie doll, but a moving Barbie doll. So you could be the Barbie doll and we're inside your head. And so you see the roads and the streets outside the windows. And so you imagine the whole body moving, because also we traveled a lot when I was a kid, and so I loved seeing the nature, the road trips, and seeing all of that, and I always take pictures outside the window, and so I wanted to add the essence of that within my work. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we still have kind of 15 minutes. No, sorry, Boemo. Sorry. Also, Boemo is the recipient of the Tomorrow's Today 2024 prize, which was announced yesterday. I think the jury had a very hard time to decide the winner, because all the proposals of your proposals and presentation were like all very singular, very beautiful. But we all agreed, I think, that you were able to bring together body work in an environment that very much is an extension of the idea of going home. Going home is the title of the project that Boemo brought to Tomorrow's Today. So the title already suggests a little bit how you're reading your idea of this natural element as a domestic, as something familiar and stranger at the same time.
Hi. Yeah, going home sort of speaks to this layers of metaphors and references within the work, but primarily permaculture, which is a kind of farming where the plants and the farmers sort of reach mutual benefits. And I found that the vessel was sort of a container for these ideas, and that within this ecosystem, in this metaphorical way, that Black bodies weren't often prioritized. And I sort of wanted to create these containers of manifestation, and I researched a lot of African ritualistic practices where they would sort of create vessels and call upon certain divinities or goals or aspirations, but also this sort of utilitarian aspect and domestic aspect of these vessels are so unassuming. They sit in your homes, on your kitchen, they can be quite useful and taken for granted in those ways, and I think that sort of calls towards the resilience of Black bodies, of people who oppose the binary. More especially, my references were my mother and my grandmother, and sort of pulling from those domestic elements of my upbringing and what I observed and how I sort of found stoicism, like, I became a bit more stoic, or I found more resistance. And the border was sort of a new element. And just after studying film, I found sort of referencing of film strips, and I thought of sort of creating another layer of meaning making and intuitive mark making, which another sort of separate conversation with the spiritual realm. And the wood carving as well, sort of another add-on to this other story that I'm telling. So, yeah.
carving, we have another image there, which is the work in progress, because I think it's very interesting that you collaborate with an artisan for the creation of this additional frame border. And there is a communication, there is a storytelling between the elements, the iconography narrative of the carving and this binomial of the vessel and the body. Can you delve a little bit on that?
Sure. So the symbols are, some of the references are sort of Ghanaian, Akindra symbols, but a lot of them are very intuitive, and I think I was sort of going towards this idea of creating a new language to speak to the spiritual realm, and working with the wood carver. I worked with Rapson, a Zambian wood carver, and sort of a nod to Irma Stone's Zanzibar frames, and just sort of a new rendition of that. But it mostly spoke to more mark making and more meaning making in already existing layers.
Thank you. So, because I know we have to be conscious of the time. Yeah, I will love to open the floor for a dialogue. So please feel free to make questions. Also, the artists themselves are more than welcome to make questions to each other. I think some of you, they already knew each other, but it's the first time that you're probably exhibiting together. So I'm sure you have some curiosity regarding each other's work. Thank you. Any question? Yeah, thank you.
Hi, I've got two questions. One for Cinthia, I would love you to elaborate on the differences of being raised as a girl in the two countries. I think that's interesting. And then the other one is for you, Boemo, I'm quite interested in how you bring in the permaculture into your work. Is it the manifestations? Is it the manifestos? Anyway, just thank you. It's all been very interesting and lovely.
Oh, me, okay. So what I meant by the two different ways of how I was raised. So in Congo is very conservative in the way that, for instance, an example was I was never really a skirt or a dress kind of girl. I was always held back, and different experiences whenever a girl, it's normal for a little girl to become a woman, in certain things, and I would see certain reactions of maybe she's having a mini skirt and, how she's being looked at. I mean, at some point it's never a bad intention. It's just, should I say a construct or a certain kind of system that everybody's kind of raised on. And so when we moved to South Africa, seeing how, for instance, the rituals or the customs of this Zulu girl becoming a woman, and so they have this ritual where I think when she's becoming a woman, they cover her with cow skin, I think. She's covered on her breast, but as she's a young woman, she has no cover on. And so those two was a very interesting point for me that I could take on and seeing how different cultures, even if we're all from Africa, but we have different things that sets us apart and certain things that link us together. So that was a very interesting observation for me of how we see liberation in Congo and how we see liberation of, by expression in South Africa. So that was a very, not really extreme, but it was a very powerful difference for me to see versus how it is in Congo.
So the involvement of permaculture into the work is mostly through the foliage and through the plants and any of those sort of symbol indications that it's plant-like, or yeah. But that was sort of my initial first body of work. The black figures weren't in a vessel; they sort of sat in gardens and beds of leaves and foliage and forests and trees. So yeah.
In reference to Boemo's body of work, that the vessel is a container, but I think there is a powerful symbology attached to that. It has kind of a warm, symbol. It has it's a space which is primordial in the sense of a space of that nourished, that allows transformation, that welcomes. So also we understand nature also in these terms. Mm.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. That was really great. I think my question is for Lindokuhle. Is it Gogo Linda? That image. I don't know if you know about the people's parks. Those the parks in, or they were like public spaces in apartheid where people would do this peaceful protesting and making these gardens and sculptures in these spaces and stuff, and it became, yeah. I mean, are you aware of it?
No, I'm not.
Look it up. There's a online archive being made of it. So yeah, just I think Google that and go into there and read some of that stuff there. And there was a lot of photography in that, like documenting that moment in our history. And then I think also what I find interesting about your images is like when you decide to have a figure and when not to have the figure in the photography. Yeah, and if you can speak towards that thinking.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think Mariella shared some stuff with me about Langa, which was kind of it's supposed to be like a garden, plan. Yeah, no, I'll definitely look it up. So, I mean, for me, it's more intuition, like as a photographer, if I see like an interesting moment, like for example, the images of my nephew there. I was supposed to photograph something else there, but he just happened to wait for me and relax, and him being like that for me was kind of interesting. But also sometimes, it's what I'll be photographing. I'm thinking now the work that is in the booth, like there's a image where you only see the kind of tree in the middle, and that the context behind that is that tree symbolizes graves. So there used to be graves there. So the family will plant a tree there, which for me was quite interesting because, at the same time I was learning about my own family history, which, my grandmother is Umtimkulu. Umtimkulu, loosely translated to the tree, but also the whole connection of nature and my ancestors, and of course, ideas around that. So, yeah, mostly intuition because, and of course, my work has changed from kind of like straight documentary to more kind of something more lyrical in a way. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's almost like it is, in that image at least, becomes plant too.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Say that.
Yeah, I mean, there's an interesting connection with the ancestors, which, the underground, and also, the trees, which, you see the leaves of coming up. I mean, one of my interests is actually creating my own family tree, which I've tried a little bit. So, from the ground is all the people that have passed away in my family. And now it's the images that I make myself. So trees and nature, it will be kind of a recurring thing, yeah.
So I actually have a question to each of you, for you all. You've been working on a body of work, on a solo show, because in the end, each of your project is a solo show. So I would love to know if, for any of you, this is somehow been the step toward a new project, if you felt inspired to continue in any new direction that maybe you discovered over these months, and if that is the case, what is that direction?
So yeah, for me, when I said I ended up in the sea, actually the sea that I ended up with, according to oral stories, it's where a lot of people, either arrived, the kind of colonizers arrived, through the sea, and you see the kind of uprooted tree, which for me was also like this metaphor of kind of uprooted identities, of those that arrived and what they've done to people in the African continent. So I would like to kind of continue, I think I was speaking about this idea of Robben Island, because, it's a place that housed a lot of father figures, so I think that would be probably the next thing.
I think so, for me too, in this way that the work is moving a lot and is very coded, and within these codes, it's like very soft and subtle and requires, like you said, a level of immersion to get into. But what this work and this body has like kind of inspired within me is kind of the vocal and the sound element that I would like to bring to life, because it is very soft and subtle and silent, even though there's so much depth and so much being revealed constantly in the images. And I worked a lot with looking at, like I said, like what's intangible. And so like I think what I want to do is really bring things to life through creating tangibility. And because I've used so many forms within this booth, so many practices have been touched, I think what's like lingering now and what's waiting to arrive within me is like the vocalization of these ideas and the tones that could come out of all the characters. I mean, I haven't counted them, but if I had to count how many forms of me and versions of me are within the booth, I'm sure there's like maybe 30, maybe a little bit under 30. So I want to hear what those voices are and how to like bring their tones to life.
I think this time I worked with a lot of new materials that I hadn't worked with before. Rapson did do the frames, but I did the ceramics, and that was my first sort of batch at them. And that I really enjoyed that process of like the actual spiritual manifestation of pulling the vessel out of the image was really like fun and I'm excited to see how I can continue that. But I think the idea is to sort of make more of that and move it to that direction, yeah.
You also mentioned about, because you have a background in TV and film, so I think in one of the conversations we also spoke about maybe exploring this aspect of the moving image, right?
Yeah, yeah, sort of like stop motion, or just finding ways that I can work with frames, as well as the sort of idea of the cyclic loop around the image, yeah.
For me, it's been very interesting, and I also feel like the work has been flowing out of me like really fast because of this deadline. And doing this fair, now you can sort of stop and look like what has come out. So it's like just that moment of reflection has brought a lot of ideas. And what I like about working on such a small booth is with the limitations. A few of the stuff that I did, like the mesh ceiling bits, now I'm asking myself, what if the whole ceiling was covered? And people have been reacting to the ceramic pieces standing behind it, and that interactive aspect has been so much fun, and also something that I would definitely want to explore, where the viewer becomes part of the whole installation. So, yeah.
For me, it's been also with time, taking a lot of patience, because starting, I was always working on 3 artworks at once, and now I focus on one, finish it, and then come back later. And so, and with this experience, I've been able to delve into a different medium, if I should say, because I went digital with the paintings, and I've been wanting to have my paintings live. And so with the NFTs, when we partnered with Usurper at the booth, you can finally see hands, and you can finally see the figures within my work moving. Throwing flowers, the fire comes to life, and birds moving outside the windows and all of that. And so that has been very exciting, and it makes me also think about the skills I have, because I started off with just printmaking and then drawing and then now painting, and so it has made me very aware of how I can play around with movement within my work, because we always smudge the movement and show the blurriness within the drawings or paintings. But with this, I can literally see myself within my paintings, making the figures pop out or move from one place, from one panel to the other. So it's definitely been a wonderful experience, yeah.
Almost at the end of this discussion. I think I wanted to add that on my side, on the curatorial aspect of all this process, I think that with this edition, I really had the chance to engage with the artist directly, always with the very important and very supportive presence of the galleries, because behind these solo shows there are galleries that accepted the challenge to make an effort and present their work in a very special way. And we have Goodman Gallery, we have Egen Art, we have Kalashnikov's SMAC and Bot Project, and I was very very interested in seeing how the galleries have accompanied you, each of you, in this process, and I think it was very exemplary. So thank you to each of you, thank you to the gallery, thank you to the fair for allowing a curatorial section just to happen without very much restriction. I was pretty much free to bring on board all the artists that I thought they were deserving to be there. And also thank you for Art Insure for sponsoring this platform to activate Tomorrow's Today and other conversations during these days. Thank you.